Hello YouTube, and welcome to the next video in my series about the major arcana from my everyday enchantment tarot. And today, as you can see, we are looking at the Hierophant. I put the Hierophant off for quite a while when I was creating this deck because I thought he was going to be very hard work, difficult to envisage because he was, a bit boring maybe. He didn't really encourage my creative flights of fancy, and his very existence just seemed to be quite opposite to my own, so I resisted him for quite a while. I didn't like the idea that his environment had to be very regimented, very orthodox, geared towards obedience and study, and not creativity at all, and that the colours were going to have to be monochrome, except for his tie, which we'll come back to later, because this suggests sober conformity and uniformity, and of course most uniforms are conservatively coloured and not great bright sort of displays of beautiful brilliant colour. So yeah, it didn't really appeal to me, this card. Perhaps that's because I didn't really understand it as well as I came to in the end. And the traditional Hierophant, this chap here, is very much the High Priest. But I found out that the word for High Priest, or a word for High Priest, is Pontifex, which can be translated as Bridge Builder. And this Hierophant is very much that. He is an interpreter. He's a bridge builder between esoteric knowledge and translating it to us. He's the link. He's that guide. And I've put my interpreter card here from my Wild Spirit deck because although he is very, very different in his approach and his appearance, certainly he couldn't be more opposite, he is called interpreter, and that is again what this Hierophant from the everyday enchantment deck is. He is the interpreter. He is the bridge builder. And that doesn't mean to say that he's just some conservative keeper of rules. He is doing a very important job. And he's not, though he is doing this, he's not like the traditional, Hierophant. He is still part of a hierarchy. He is a Hierophant. He is part of a hierarchy, but he isn't up on his pedestal or on his throne above us. He's not elevated, he's not aloof, he's not in a position of power. This man, our Hierophant here, he uses his position in a very different way. He's authoritative, but he's approachable. I'm sorry don't know whether we're focusing. I really hope we are. I'll come in closer to him in a bit and stay still so that you can have a good look at the card. Yeah, he uses his position in a very different way. He sits, for starters, he sits on a swivel chair and he's on the level. That's very, very important. He's on the level with his students. He's not perched up on a dais above them. So he's not sort of using his position as a tool to control them. And he's also leaning forward. He's not giving any distance. He's leaning forward on his staff, which would be the equivalent of his staff of office, his priestly gadget that he has here. But this man's staff is very much an ordinary walking stick, which he's leaning on, not in a threatening way, but just as a point of stability. And that shows us something again. Everything in these cards has a meaning, and that shows that he's incredibly grounded. He's grounded, and he's a stable point in our lives. He's definitely not wielding it over us. It's not a cane to punish us in any way. It's just a symbol of his groundedness. He's totally reliable and he's here to help, which is why he's leaning towards us with a look on his face. He's got a hint of a smile. He doesn't look stern. He doesn't look unapproachable, pompous, inscrutable, which I'm afraid I think this chap does. Not to criticise any other deck in any other way, but to me, this face says nothing at all. It gives nothing away And I wanted this man to be a far different character in his approach to people. Although obviously he's not a flamboyant sort of fellow. He's totally staid and has a lot of similarities with this chap, but his approach is different. He's still deeply conventional, and you might think he's stuffy, fuddy-duddy type of man, but he's here for his pupils and not for his own glory. Like a godlike figure, because again, with the bridge building, he is, the bridge between, as it were, God and humanity, which is the role that this man in the traditional Hierophant very much epitomizes. But this one is much more accessible. Even though he is still a bridge builder, he's not elevated himself to some place of grandeur so that he almost appears godlike. That is not what he's about at all. He's not interested in being a dictator. He is constrained by religion just as much as this one is. He is hidebound by convention, and we have to think that religion breaks down into meaning. I'm probably not going to pronounce this perfectly. Forgive me for my pronunciation, but I hope you'll get the gist. Religare, which means a bond, and religio, which it probably is completely wrong, but religio, religio. I'm sure you can get what I'm saying here, which means to tie. I think ligatage is the art of tying, and that comes from the same root word. So it's all about tying us to a belief system, but he's not doing that because he's trying to control us at all. He's doing it because he thinks it's right. It's the right way. It's the way, that the tried and tested way that provides us with a decent life, and that's why he's doing it. He's not doing it in any sense to keep us under his thumb. And he really believes what he conveys. You can see that he's a genuine man. He really he believes 100%. He's not a preacher, and he's certainly not what he says goes. He will allow you to question him, but he wants us to understand that traditional teachings are, how he perceives that's the way forward, basically, for us. That they're the foundations that we need for a good life. Whether we choose to go our own way after that is up to us, but he's offering them to us because he thinks that they are the basis for a decent, honourable life. And let's see, I can't actually see. Here on his table there are a set of car keys or door keys, which had to be like that because this is an everyday tarot and I couldn't have some great key like the ones on here. But they show us both the keys on this one and the keys on his desk, the normal keys. They symbolise that he is about to unlock the mysteries for us. He takes that role very seriously and he thinks it's very important, and he is the one to do it. And he has one arm raised, not because he's telling us what to do. He's not pointing and dictating. It's raised, and there's a slight, can I get close to show you? Out of his finger there's a glow coming, and that shows us that he has a genuine link. He does have that connection to the spiritual teachings. He's not just teaching in a dry, rote type fashion. He really believes in the wisdom that he's imparting to us, and that does show us that he has that link. He's not just sort of blah, 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 raising his finger. That has a purpose. I'm not quite sure what this purpose is. I'd need to look into that more. That's a very traditional pose of a priest, and probably again shows that they have this unique connection to the heavens, to God, that we don't have, and only they can transmit that to us. His is a lot gentler. It would have been entirely inappropriate for this tarot for him to be behaving like that, but there's nothing wrong with that. Both of them have basically the same meaning. It's just that I'm sharing with you what's behind my deck without any criticism to anybody else's. yeah, so he really believes in what he's doing, and that comes across. He wants us to keep on the straight and narrow, and he wants us to stick with what's tried and tested. He upholds the great traditions like church, school, marriage, and he is a pillar of convention and of society, of the community. He will not fail us. And you see the pillars here, which have a great deal of esoteric meaning that I can't go into in this video. It's already 10 minutes long, but anybody that's familiar with this, with the symbology of the pillars, will know they have names and they have a great tradition. This man's pillars are shown in the sides of the sides of his whiteboard here. They look like pillars, even though they're not. They're just the edges of the whiteboard, just to show that he is constrained within this framework. And also his piles of books are also a bit pillar-like. He is constrained within the traditional wisdom that he is sharing. I hope that pen wasn't making everything go weird, sorry. Yes, and he has a companion spirit, whether he is aware of them or not, who is in a thinker pose, sort of echoing the thinker pose that is in the Hermit card. And I did say that my next video was going to be comparing and contrasting the Hermit and the Hierophant, and that is sort of a link between the two, but we'll come back to that in the next video, hopefully. What else can we talk about? The black and white floor, very orderly, representative of duality, at the as above, so below ethos, and also very redolent, is that the right redolent of Freemasonry, which uses this a lot. And one of the keystones perhaps of Freemasonry is the idea of bringing order from chaos, and that's what he likes to do. That's part of him. He's straight. He's a straight man, and he will help us through life as a guide, but he will keep us on that straight and narrow. The only things in his classroom that are a little bit disorderly are there's a spider on the desk and there's a mouse under his chair, and neither of which are distracting anybody because he's holding everybody so much in thrall. But they're the only sort of signs of wild life, basically, within his room, because everything else is very much regimented. But it doesn't look like that is a bad thing. There's not a sense of this as a miserable, oppressive kind of environment. The traditional card has the two monks at the feet of the Hierophant, and this card has instead of the monks, you have the pupils in the same position, but they're on his level. And they look engaged. Nobody's fooling around. Even the spider on the desk hasn't made anybody jump in the air. It's all very calm and very orderly. He's not holding their attention by force or intimidation or anything else. He's compelling. He's charismatic. They know his rules, and they play by them because he's a decent man and they can trust him. And that's really important for these young people. They can trust this man, whether they agree with him or not, whether they follow his rules through life or not. They can trust him, and he is a point of stability in their lives, and he can communicate that to us as well when we encounter him in our readings. He loves what he does, and that comes across, and they take him seriously because he takes himself seriously. He's 100% committed to the teachings and to them. There's no pomp or ceremony. He just wants it to be accessible for them to understand him, but he never loses his natural authority. He's not dumbing down. He's not talking down to them. He's not trying to make it sort of fit into a modern age or to their short attention spans. He treats them and as if they are going to understand him, and expects them to listen and respect him because he doesn't treat them like idiots, and he respects them. And he's there because it's his vocation, and he loves it because it isn't just a job. So I ended up really appreciating this Hierophant. He symbolises any mature person of integrity and decency that's got a genuine will to help and to impart knowledge that perhaps we can't understand. Maybe there are times when we do need somebody to act as an interpreter. The Hermit would probably disagree with that, but this card suggests that there are times when we do need that. We need another person to explain it to us, to give us the take on it that they have got through long years of study and through following the path themselves, because he is, he's very authentic. He practices what he preaches. We might not ever agree with his conservative ways or views, but we can appreciate always that he has our best interests at heart. And, there he is in his suit and his red tie, which echoes the red robe here. But that's really his only sign of overt power, his red tie. He's not got a crown on, he's not above us, he's with us. And we can go to him with any problem, and it might suggest that that's the sort of person that we need to seek out now. There are many things within this that could speak to us at this particular time. And I don't want to make a hugely long video, and in fact I'll probably touch on some of them in the other video that I'm going to make about the Hermit and the Hierophant. But for now I will just say that that's what's going on in this card, and I'm glad that I worked so hard on it, because he deserved it. I think he's an unsung hero of this deck. He's an incredibly good man, and there's no hidden aspect to him, except for the teachings are hidden. He's bringing through the hidden teachings, but he's what you see is what you get. He's absolutely genuine, and we can trust him. And the subtitle in my book, which will give you a lot more information about him, and then you can hear him speak in his own voice. The subtitle he gets in the book is Keeping the Faith, because he does keep the faith. He's a faithful adherent to tradition, and he keeps that faith alive for all these students, and whether they choose to follow it or not, he has been the one to give them a clear insight into other ways of being and other ways of doing things. And if they choose to follow the straight path, then he is as good a guide as any that they're going to find. Okay, well, I've enjoyed sharing him with you, because I've been really pleased to find out more about him myself and to respect him a lot more than I did when I started creating this deck. So I hope you'll join me for the next video, where I'll come back to him and the Hermit and hopefully just talk about them briefly before we move on to the next card. And yeah, thank you for joining me. It's been lovely, and see you again soon. Meanwhile, please take care of all other creatures that you encounter, and of yourselves, of course. Lots of love. Bye for now.